Good evening and welcome to the Good Old Fashioned podcast, the space where conversations flow freely and authenticity takes center stage. There's no script, there's no rehearsals, just real, unfiltered moments captured in one take. So here we deep dive into stories, thoughts, and connections that matter most. So whether you're here to listen, learn, or simply feel seen, this is your seat at the table. So let's get started. So we have online with us today Kirsten Schmedes. I hope I've pronounced that correctly, Kirsten. Can you hear me all okay?
Hello, I can hear you. Hello.
Hello, hi. I was just getting us all introduced and just, mainly introducing yourself as well. So probably what we'll do is we'll work out a little bit of a format and make sure that you get to give us a good idea about who you are. I'm really interested in some of the things that you've been working on. And yes, Kirsten Schmedes, have I pronounced that correctly?
Very close. It's Schmedes, but it's just a funky last name that doesn't need a whole lot of attention. It takes up enough already.
No problem at all, no problem. So are you busy today? How has your day been so far?
Oh, it's been lovely. I had a couple meetings today, but it's a beautiful sunny day outside. My day has been lovely. How about yours?
It's been good. It's been so productive. I'll tell you, when I finished doing all of my errands, I just internally said, do you know what? Women are super women. Like,
Yeah.
the capacity to get things done. And I woke up with several missions to get done, say, all just normal, everyday things. But when you've just got to pack it all in and get it done. And I was just, yep. Everything was flowing. And then I just sat in the car and I just said, thank you, God, for sorting everything for me. And I was just like, we are literally powerhouses. So it's been a really good day.
You are so right about that. Our ability to carry a lot at once is really very superhuman, I think. So could not agree more.
Absolutely. Now, we are going to talk about you being a superhero and meeting new individuals and, really putting yourself out on a limb. So the backstory that I got, well, first of all, we met late 2023.
Wow.
I believe we connected through another post that I'd done on my Instagram. And I would have loved to have connected way more with you throughout 2024. But I think, life was life in.
Yes.
But we spoke previously and we had such a beautiful conversation and due to technical difficulties and all sorts of things on my part completely, we decided we're going to go ahead and do it again. But I feel that that's a good sign. I think everything works out for how it's meant to, and I'm really excited to get this conversation started. So would you mind by just giving our audience and just anybody who's listening or will be listening a bit of an idea about who you are, where you're from, nothing too intrusive, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing?
Yeah, of course. My name's Kirsten. I am from Southern California. I just moved to New York City a few months ago, beginning of September of last year. And I am super passionate about people. I'm super passionate about their stories. I'm also very much faith is such a huge part of how and why I live my life the way I do. And I I love to go out with friends. I love going to concerts. I love traveling. I love the beauty of what it means to learn from each other and make new connections, which is why I love the fact that we get to reconnect again and kind of see where we've been and what we've been up to. And again, continue that process of learning from each other. So I'm super excited to be back talking to you again and see what can come of meaningful connection. So I'm really grateful.
Me too, absolutely. And I think one of the things about you is you bring such a light. Like, I just really enjoy. We've only spoken a couple of times, but sometimes we call it in England verbal diarrhea, where I just can't stop speaking to you. I love how you are so able to hear, and I imagine that's why you've been successful in your mission of meeting new people, because you're such an amazing soundboard. Have you always been like that? Like, have you always been so open to dialogue and meeting, or were you coming out of your comfort zone with that?
Great question. I feel like I've always been this way. And I think a lot of what has fueled that in me is I grew up an only child. I do have some half siblings, but I grew up by myself really with my parents. And so I had to develop a skill of being able to connect with other people. Otherwise, I wouldn't have friends and therefore, like, by extension, family, because my friends quickly became family for me because I didn't have, siblings growing up in that way. So I think it was very important for me to be able to connect well with others. And I think as I've gotten older, really having to learn how to be better at that. And I take it, very seriously because, again, I think it's so easy to be a lonely person if you're not intentional. And so I have been not only have I been intentional, but I feel like I've been gifted such great people that have chosen to also walk alongside me. So it's been, such a partnership, I feel like, in building relationships with people. So I've worked to be good at it, but I've also been very blessed.
Amazing. I think that's huge. Being an only child, I have quite a few siblings, so that's a difference. I mean, I think there's
You
quite
do have a lot of siblings.
yeah, it's quite the opposite where I found my voice because when you're the youngest, you kind of silence yourself, even though I wasn't always silent. I think my mum would say you were never silent, Nadine, but you find that a lot of the bigger characters kind of make you regress and it makes you more imaginative. And I found that particularly in school, as much as probably on the exterior, I came across as quite confident. Learning to use my voice and have my voice came much later in life for me. So this whole journey of doing these podcasts and these discussions are quite cathartic. And I would like to believe it's a muscle that we keep on working, learning how to communicate, learning how to connect. But no, that's amazing. So when we spoke initially, you spoke to me about your target of meeting. How many people was it that you were targeting yourself to meet?
Yeah, so I was targeting to meet 12 friends in a year, once a month, just a very manageable goal. That was my hope and my desire for sure.
And did you say was it somebody that you met online who had targeted an even bigger number? I can't remember his name.
Yes, his name is Rob. His name is Rob Lawless. He's on Instagram. His Instagram handle is 12K friend or something like that. He's a lovely human being. I met him actually. And so his goal is to meet, I think, 10,000 friends. And then I don't know what his goal will be after that, but he's been doing this for years and he's been on different talk shows. And so I got to meet him. And then from there, he challenged me to meet a stranger a month. And so I'm really good at meeting strangers, but I love this particular format was sitting down, grabbing a coffee with a stranger and, sharing a little bit of your story and your life with somebody for about an hour. And so I loved it. I did it with probably 3 or 4 friends, and then life happened and I moved. And so I'm looking forward to picking it back up because it's so amazing to be able to see somebody that you don't know anything about and be like, oh, me too. I have that thing. Or, oh, your experience complements my experience and you have wisdom. And I feel like I learn so much from people. My biggest lessons in life have come from other people more than books, more than, anything else. Relational lessons have been the biggest impact on me.
Amazing, amazing. That's reminded me that I do need to look Rob up. If I've not followed him already, I think I may have done from after the last conversation that we had, but I will make sure that I have done because that's a huge. I don't know what I would do with 100 new friends, never mind 10,000. So that's pretty incredible. How many did you get to? Did you meet your 12? Did you hit your number?
I didn't hit my number. I met 3 or 4 people. And then life got a little crazy and then I moved. And so now now that I'm settled in the heart of meeting people in New York City, I'm really looking forward to picking that back up and sitting down with people. I want to record the conversations as well. So I have a little bit of do it a little bit differently, but I would love to just meet strangers again. It's my favorite thing.
I mean, New York itself, I can imagine, is a hive of activity because I've seen it. Obviously, you see it in the movies, you see it on Instagram, you see it on YouTube. But what I have found, particularly in the UK, is though we are surrounded by so many people, maybe this is a knock-on effect of social media. There's become kind of like an insular concept where people are, they're stuck in their phones or they're concerned about, commuting. And I know that, New York's got a very intricate subway system. So it's like, get on the subway, get to where you're going. And there's no real time. So how will you navigate that? Like, will you, and maintain it being organic? How do you, are you just going to naturally, when you're sat next to somebody on a bus, strike up a conversation? What's that going to look like for you?
I think that's a really beautiful observation because I do think big cities give a false sense of intimacy and community because you're surrounded by people and you think you're connecting more deeply than you are. You think you're not as lonely as you are. And so it can be really easy to just kind of not be thoughtful about experiences because there's so much happening around you. So yeah, I think that's really good observation as well. For me, I'm very grateful. My challenge is not talking to strangers. Like I talk to strangers on the subway. I've met these really cool, psychologists they work in a psych ward, and I got to sit down and just chat with them while we were on the subway and talk about the effects of their job. That was just like the most natural conversation. But for me, I want to capture them and save these conversations forever, and they don't have to be super long. So for me, it would be the intentionality of, hey, do you have an hour to sit down with me? I just met you, but would you sit down with me and we can talk and I can record it and save it forever? That to me is something that I'm finding is a new muscle for me. That's the extra layer. But I meet people at restaurants. I meet people on the subway. I meet people while I'm walking. I also just am very expectant to meet people. I walk around with an energy of, who could I meet today? And it sounds maybe weird, because I don't think a lot of people do that. I think people, and there's safety reasons too, why people maybe aren't as open about just meeting random strangers. But I think for me, I am so energized by the opportunity to meet somebody. It's like a little endorphin hit for me. So yeah, I'll even make little comments somebody's in the aisle at the grocery store, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful shirt you're wearing today or whatever. There's just so many little gateways to being able to get to know somebody a little bit deeper. And if you're authentic, if you're being honest about the interaction, which is, I think a lot of people really sense what's going on here? Why are you trying to talk to me? If you're just authentically being you and you're excited about what's going on, I found that that's been received super well. And yeah, it's one of my favorite things about New York City is people are open, but I think if you have the right intentions, you can get a lot out of the experience of meeting strangers anywhere.
100%. And just hearing what you're saying, Mary, there's a couple of things that came to mind. One of them, probably not, it's a little bit morbid, but it really made me think of, there was a lady that I think she was working for, is it Wells Fargo, or I don't want to slander anybody's company, or Chase, or a really, really big organization. And she was on the 69th floor. And I believe she passed away at her desk. Nobody knew. And she was there.
Wow.
She was in her office and she had been there for a good time, and I'm talking days. If you look it up, it was quite, it came out online.
Wow.
It really just made me think of, when you're in big cities and everybody sees somebody pass by and they assume they have a family, they have a community, they have people around them to talk to. And nobody actually reported her missing. Nobody was expecting her.
Wow.
So the mission of this podcast is to really give a voice to everybody, because you don't need to be, a celebrity. My
right.
inaugural episode was with somebody who was kind of he became an unwitting celebrity because, he spoke wisdom and he spoke,
right.
dignity in a public place. But we can all have the capacity to do that. And I think when you give people time to just talk, and it makes me also think of another when I was out at, I believe it's like an award ceremony, and I was just in the foyer, and when you're just sat around and everyone's kind of milling around to go to their next event, and I was sat chatting with a gent from London, and we were talking for a good while, an elderly man, could probably be my granddad, but I just, like yourself, I gravitate towards energy, and if you're willing to open up and talk, then here I am. And when we finished our conversation and I had to go, he was like, "Thank you so much." I was like, "For what?" And he was just like, no discredit to her, but like my wife doesn't sit down and have these conversations. Like we're like passing shit, and it is such a shame because I find everybody interesting. Like people are like, "Oh, my life is boring," and then you just have to have a couple of sentences, and it's just like, no, your life is anything but boring. So yeah, I think what you're doing and doing it in places like New York, places where people are just whizzing around and all this frantic energy, and just slow it down a little bit and just say, no, I want to invest some time in learning about you. I think it's an amazing thing. And I really, really hope, I know obviously you're quite busy and you have work and everything, but I fully support it. And once you start, however you get these recorded or documented, whatever, I'm really, really keen to see, because I think your energy is necessary to continue to, bring light to people who don't necessarily have it. Not to say they don't have light within them, but just bringing a light to somebody who's having a good day, that type of thing. So, yeah, I think that's amazing. But from a work perspective, so we spoke previously, and I believe it was in a Christian organization, but you're no longer within that organization. So do you mind just giving a bit of background about what you do? What does Kirsten do? What does your life look like? And how do you meet these people?
Yeah. So, when we spoke last time, I several years ago, my first ever full-time job was I worked full-time in ministry for four years. And I worked at a church, and it was such a rich experience. I learned a lot. There was a lot of hurt, but a lot of learn, a lot of amazing people that I met. I think I was mentored super well by a wonderful lady. Her name is Terry Goodwin. She is one of my favorite people to this day. And I think that made a really big impact on me. And it was really such a great reminder of what it means when you actively pour into somebody or take an interest in somebody or be a safe place for somebody. And so I've been so benefited by that. I think it's also informed how I want to be in the world. So I did that for 4 years. I felt called to step out of that. I think for me, I felt like my role was everybody was coming to me. And I just felt this calling to go out, be who I am, and go out and meet people where they're at versus, being in that environment, there was this expectation that people are going to come to you. And so that just wasn't where I felt like I was supposed to be anymore. I moved out of that. I got a very boring corporate job. I basically manage accounts right now, but I do it remotely. And I've found that remote life gives me the flexibility to go out for an hour, during lunch and go meet somebody. And it's a little bit slower on the streets. And I really appreciated that. And it stores up my social energy a little bit better because I'm at home. I'm not in an office. So I get to use my social energy out in the world. And so I feel like I do have probably a little bit more capital to spend than other people do who have a really exhausting job. They're on their feet all day. And the last thing I want to do is go be intentional with somebody. They just want to come home and be on the couch. So I think there are a lot of the intention about even the vocations that I've chosen have been so that way I'm not drained at the end of my day. I want to have enough to give. And I structure my life in such a way where my schedule isn't overloaded. So that way I can be available for myself and other people. So yeah, I like to be a social person. And so I try to set myself up for success in the areas that are kind of the uncontrollables. We all have to work. So how do I find a job that allows me to still be me in and through all of that?
I love that. There's some words that you've used there, social energy. And obviously, I think that kind of comes with the social battery aspect. And I'm calling it capital because your energy really, really is a currency.
It is.
trade it with and who you exchange it with is so, so important. And who sometimes you can find it being drained from you. And remote working has taken quite a bashing because a lot of people talked about the fact that it's making people more reclusive. But I love your take on it, where it's no, I can put it in my reserve. I can, I'm not where I'm going out into the world. I know I have to be somewhere by 9 o'clock. I know I have to commit to being in traffic and all this, and so that when you come out of your environment at home, it's purposeful. You're calm. You have that, you have
Right.
that time where you can say, I'm not just going to put whatever I'm giving out towards. So I actually do love that. And I am a fan, like, I'm quite similar to yourself. I work, very much from home. And so it gives me the capacity that, again, because what I do is holistically based.
Right.
I can't go out and give people what I don't have physically because it's a physical role. I've got to know that, again, like you say, that social energy is really, really at the top. I've got to be running on full tank or as close as. So no, I love that. And with your social currency, so when you come out into the world and you're around people, do you find it, what's the word, not jarring, but can it sometimes feel like quite like, wow, like, because you create a bubble, don't you, once you're inside? Can it be quite, I'm trying to think of the word where it kind of jump scares you a little bit when you get back into society and realize what people are dealing with? Or is it just that you've been in the environment for that long that it's just natural to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am naturally more extroverted. So I think when I leave my house, it is like it's a refreshing to be around people. I also have to fight the tension of sometimes I'm at home and I'm like, man, it feels like effort to get ready to go outside because I don't have to go outside unless I want to, or unless something is making me do that. So because I don't have the luxury of I'm out for work, so let me just continue this, let me just continue to stay out. It's okay, I'm leaving my house for like it's my choice essentially. So sometimes I've had to fight the urge to not stay at home all day. So I think the jarring aspect that you speak of, I feel like comes when people are misbehaving. I'm like, woof. Okay, somebody's having a bad day today. Somebody's not mentally like healthy or whatever. That to me feels a little bit more of a shock factor when I have to encounter those type of people, because you do create this like very peaceful bubble in your home, in your room, wherever you're at. And it's like, wow, look at this sanctuary I've created. And then you go out and you're like, wow, okay, people aren't all looking for that as well. Some people do just want to be chaotic or they don't have the resources to be better or whatever. I think that would probably be the hardest, is that juxtaposition of like peace and then chaos in some people's lives if I have to interact with them.
Yeah, no, totally. I get that. So moving to a little bit where we didn't quite discuss this in our last conversation, but I'm really interested to know. So, okay, we meet 12 people, but let's think about from a romantic side. So when you're meeting, whoever you think of, maybe a prospective partner or that type of thing, you may not be actively at the moment. And again, you don't need to divulge anything major about, what you're doing or dating life or anything, but we're in the age of where we have Tinder and Bumble and all these different apps which we're now communicating electronically. Is your preference to meet prospective partners or people who maybe, that you'd consider, dating? Do you meet them organically, or are you now into that age of communicating online?
This is a great question. And I have such mixed feelings about the apps and all of that. So I have been on and off apps for probably like 7 years. I will go through phases where I'm like, okay, I'm not meeting people in person. Let me see if I can meet people online. And then I get frustrated with that. And then I delete all of them. And then I bring them back a few months later or whatever. My ideal would be to meet somebody in person. I think there's a lot of information that you can gather very quickly about somebody if you meet them in person. How do they interact with the people around them? How do they talk to you? What kind of energy do they bring? How are they looking at you? Are they considerate? Like, is their attention divided when they're speaking to me? Like, there's so much that you can glean from an in-person interaction that I love. I love that. I think it helps me make a good decision about whether I want to continue to talk to that person or not. And I think the apps I turned to when I felt discouraged in public. And yeah, or even like a moment of weakness, if I'm going to be vulnerable, of like, oh man, like I want this and I don't feel like I'm going to get it. So how do I get some type of connection with somebody? So I'll turn into an app, in that way. So again, it's not my ideal. Right now, the apps are completely gone off of my phone, by the way. I'm in that phase right now of like, I don't want to meet anybody online. Yeah, it would be ideal. And I think too, what's frustrating is because I love making friends love making friends out of strangers. And I have been very blessed that that's become a little bit easier to me. It is frustrating when it doesn't come easy to me in that area. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, this is not hard for me. Why is this not more successful? So I think that I even live in that stage of like, why is this so much harder than it needs to be?
No, absolutely. Like I fortunately got to being able to get to as far as I have in life with having, and mainly because I've just been in long-term relationships since the dawn of time. So I haven't gone through that route, but I've spoken to so many people who have, and one of them was a success story, and she met her husband and they got married because that's how we encountered her. She was using my services for her wedding. And they've just had a baby. So, if that gives you any hope, it
can happen.
It can happen. And they seem completely compatible. And obviously, I don't, because she's a client of mine, we don't connect on a deeper level. But from what I can see, we follow each other and whatever. She's living a very happy, successful life. So I think it's, whether or not online or face to face, or can somewhat determine who's your type of person. I know that people can probably mask it a little bit better online, but there'll be slips and they'll show.
That's very true. That is very true.
You are who you are. And I think the only thing that could potentially change that is now things like ChatGPT, where people can probably lead in.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So that's probably, and with the use of AI and things like that. So I am with you on the organic learning about a person, meeting new people, and not necessarily for it having to be a romantic situation from day one, but just really knowing that you can, if somebody's happy to talk, because again, with technology, I find that people limit their conversations so much. Whereas I love, I'm doing a podcast for it. I love good, lengthy conversation. And
same.
imagine you're the same person where if that person can hold a conversation, so, when nice is like, you hang up, when you get that energy, I think you've hit that sweet spot. But I find that technology is making it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
So, I'm really interested to see, well, you said that you've deleted all the apps at this moment in time. So.
They're gone. Yeah. Would you ever use them? Would you ever consider them? Or are you kind of like, no, if I meet somebody, I really only want it to be in person? Or what's your feelings towards, that?
So this kind of probably leads to probably one of the future discussion that we'll have. I'm off dating altogether.
Okay.
I feel that the communication, so I'm more working on at the moment, internal dialogue about who I am as a person.
That's beautiful.
When you work on that, you can I feel it would happen if it's ever meant to happen organically, but the conversations that I'm kind of listening to at the moment are from women who have decided that dating is no longer something that they wish to actively pursue. And that kind of seems to work for me, only because, like you said, social energy, relationships have a lot of energy. And we only have so much to give. And I think the reason, number one of the main reasons why relationships don't work is because we're trying to give energy to our partner, to our job, to our career, to our studies, to all these different things. And This is what the Bible says, you can't serve two masters. And
Yeah.
the more you put into your plate, and I think it's so distressing, obviously, being on Instagram, when I see so many relationships publicly breaking down, and it's just
sad.
that both feel neglected, both feel unheard. And it's no blame on anyone other than understanding that I can only be and do so much. So I don't want to put on any other person at this moment of my life any more of what they can handle. You handle your things, you win in your own way. And I'm going to work on the things I'm working on. So the podcast, I've just started a psychology degree. As you know, I have
congrats.
children. Thank you. I have children. I also have grandchildren. So it's just kind of like, I have enough.
Yeah, you have a lot going on. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I don't want to make that, a bigger thing for other people. So no, I'm happy, but I do want to communicate with, males, females. I do, absolutely. And there's a concept that men and women can't be platonic friends. And I hear that. I've always advocated that, to be honest, that I don't believe that, I think that sometimes at some point you're going to want to blur the line. That's just how I felt, and I've not been disproven in that. But I would love to have conversations with men and, just learn about who they are. I'm not anti-men. I'm just, from a dating perspective, it's just not where I'm at the moment. And,
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think just to your point about relational capital and energy, I think just to kind of add a note onto that, I do think unhealthy relationships take up more relational energy than they need to. And then you're also not, a healthy relationship should also fill you back up. So that way you're not left depleted consistently. Now, I'm not saying there can be seasons where, we're in a rough spot, but like the overarching, the consistency of a healthy relationship should also be giving back to you. And I find so often so many people end up in marriages, end up in friendships, end up in familial relationships where that is requiring so much of them, more than it should, because it's not healthy. And so I just think it's super important to be wise about who we are overly vulnerable with, who we're intimate with, because it does end up taking over your life in a way that they weren't ever meant to. And it does end up killing parts of you that weren't meant to die. They were meant to live and thrive and be watered and all of that. So I think it's, just as much as I love meeting people, I also have to be aware of is this a healthy person? Because then I have to be aware of how much I can invest, because you're going to take more from me than I should be giving. And I'm also going to want to give more, because it's not even just you're going to take. I also will want to give, but it's not going to be done responsibly. And then I'm going to be left with, a lot of emptiness and internal death that it's not meant to be. So.
Yes, like what you just said. And the thing is, I think from my perspective, healthy relationships. So I feel a healthy relationship is something that both people have to want to work at daily. And I think in this environment that we're in, because everybody has so much going on, unless you're in a space where you can invest that time to, even if you are interacting with your wife, your partner, your girlfriend, whatever, that you can say, is what I'm going to say going to upset? And I just don't think people have the time, because there's so much in their own self-preservation. So an unhealthy relationship never sets out to be an unhealthy relationship. And a lot of the times people get into these relationships thinking, this is going to save me, this is going to help me. And it becomes unhealthy, because then you start to reveal the skeletons in the closet, and you start to be your true self, and you're like, okay, I'm not over this situation, I'm not through. And those aren't things that you will necessarily know on day one. I think unless you're completely in a Zen environment where, and maybe this is why in, more, not necessarily tropical, but rural places where life is very simple, you find that, they stay together probably longer, because they don't have the constraints of trying to hold down careers led. And there's a village. A lot of relationships struggle because, I'm putting everything on you that I thought the village would help me with. So you meet a partner, you have a child, and partner comes into it completely thinking, oh, it's going to be okay. And then everyone disappears. And it's like, oh, so I have to do this and I have to do that. And there's a lot of pressure. And women, going back to what I was saying earlier about the superhuman aspect, we're really good at the pressure. We're the diamonds. We can take it and we can take it. You just have to go through childbirth. Half the things that women go through, going through a period every single month, we can take it. Our pain threshold is so high, and women have also their hormonal changes. Whereas I think that men may struggle biologically. So physically they have it. Physically they have that ability, but for the strength within. And so I feel for men a lot of the time, because they're purported in public to be, you're the patriarch, you're the guy that's going to be strong, and they don't have it. And it's not recognized, and they've not been taught it, they've not learned it. So they come into these situations, and there's this woman who's in her hormones, in her femininity, just giving her all, and he's just overwhelmed by it. So I'm hoping to have conversations with women, just to learn about the experiences and how they've rolled it back to having long, healthy relationships, and if they exist. Because at the moment, I'm very skeptical, because I'm watching the world go by. And even when I see a functioning relationship, I kind of have this intuitive spirit, and you kind of pick up on the unsaid and unheard. And also, again, because I work holistically, when you look at people's skin, when you look at their little telltale signs, and you can say, okay, you might be smiling, but I know you're struggling with something. And whereas women will go to a spa, or they'll go, for a girls' day or a girls' night, or go and chill with mom for a bit, or sister, or whoever, and find, we'll buy crystals, we'll go to church, men won't do it. Probably the gym, and probably yoga, or meeting with the boys if they have any. But if they don't have that community in themselves, it can be quite scary for a man in the relationship. So yeah, I'm interested to explore that further. But yes, anyway, I digress. Thank you for giving that, that insight into where you are, from a relationship sense. And I wish you the very best on your journey. I'm glad you're off the app.
Yeah, me too.
So let's talk. Well, I like to stay in the now. So present day now, and also going ahead to the future. What's on the agenda for you, and how can, conversation and communication help you move into where you want to be in your own life?
Wow, that's beautiful. Good question. So today, I would say I'm in a season of wanting to have good boundaries with myself. I have really good boundaries with people. I have good boundaries at work. I have, good boundaries for the most part with anything external. But within myself, I'm finding that that's a little bit of a harder thing, and this isn't to say I don't live, recklessly or anything like that, but I have found being a little bit boundaryless, a little bit undisciplined with my personal time. I'm starting to feel the effects of, hey, let's work towards something, Kirsten. What are your hopes? What are your dreams? And how are you making them happen? And are you setting yourself up for success? I think even just something simple like go to bed a little bit earlier so you can wake up earlier and be able to accomplish some of those things in the morning before you start work. So that way the rest of your day is not chaotic. I'm just feeling a little bit challenged in that for this year. And out of that, I would love to really put towards some intentional time and effort to sitting down with people and really bridging the gap between stranger and friend. And I think the more that I sit down with myself, journal, work through, what do I, beyond just that act, what's my mission in that? And I really do believe it is bringing light to dark places. I think it's making people feel seen. I think it's letting people know that there's something bigger out there beyond themselves that God can offer you. And I'm all about making sure that it's very organic, because no one wants to be communicated with that has an agenda. I don't want that. I want somebody to see me and know me. And I think you have to earn the right to be able to kind of step toes into those waters of conversation. And so I really want to earn it with people. I really want to show them that I'm a safe person and that they are loved no matter what. And even if I don't agree with you, you're still so important and lovable and worth being loved. And also you're worth choosing better for yourself. And I think that that's something that, saying no to yourself as an adult is hard because all your life, everybody tells you no. But for you to have to make that choice of, oh, I have to tell myself no for something better tomorrow, for something better next year, denying yourself those things for the betterment of my own good, that's a hard one. And I think that that's part of the maturing process. That's part of the growth is not indulging even when you can and being your own, allowing yourself to be your own governor and in partnership with God is a stretching moment for me right now. And I do believe that that's sort of like the next step, the next leveling up for me as a mature adult is, you know, saying no to myself to set myself up for what it is that I believe I'm called to do here. So it's been a really nice journey to really kind of own it and embrace it and see kind of, okay, I'm skilled. I very clearly feel like I know what I'm good at here. I just need to sort of set up that scaffolding to be able to actually live it out effectively and sustainably.
I love it. I mean, self-governance and self-restraint, like what you've said about the boundaries, it is probably one of the toughest. Well, that's why there's so much of an industry on self-mastery. You've now got Buddhist monks going viral because they know and they have known in the East that conquering other people, like you can tell people no to you blue in the face, saying no to you and no, don't eat that sugar. No, don't stay online for an extra hour. Oh my goodness, it is very, very difficult, but it's so hard. But what I found with myself, and by no means am I perfect at it. There's so many things with myself that I need to have boundaries with. And I think the boundaries will tell you. So like I said, one of them is your body. So your body's probably the first one. So when you're tired or lethargic or feeling a bit cranky, then you know that a boundary has been missed somewhere. But I think there's little subtle ones. So I am part of a group. They're sort of diasporans across the pond who are working on a community in Ghana. And so today, as I said earlier on in the call, I found that I was in a really good place. Like everything was, winning. Now I go into this group and I'm just catching up on all the messages. And just because of some things that are going on at the moment, I just started to feel my energy shift. And my patience starting to wear, and it was just such a subtle change. And I thought to myself, it's like a voice just basically said, do you need to be in this group? And it was, you don't think of it. Like, you don't think, I know it's probably a really loose example, but you don't think that there's things that you're partaking in which aren't necessarily beneficial, but I feel that when you sit in silence with yourself for a little bit and you read your own energy and you watch how the subtle movements within yourself happen, and then I can kind of make the decision that, okay, well, that's a boundary. Being in it and catching up with everybody and all this has happened and that's happened, but that's making you feel negatively. And negative and positive, they have to coexist. So I don't turn away from them. I don't shy away from them. I try and lean into them and just let them flow. But now I've learned today that, and this is just today, that I need to protect my mental energy from things where other people are going through so much. And even just something like a WhatsApp group can have an impact. I've known it from when I was in different community groups previously. But again, you work through it and you kind of just like, no, I'll mute it. I won't speak. I won't talk.
Right.
But then, you've got that temptation to go and catch back up.
Yeah.
And begin it again. So honestly, with your boundaries, one of the things that you mentioned was journaling. I find journaling being such an outlet, but I think it's really underrated. Yeah. I'm currently writing a book on it because journaling has helped me through my entire life. Like as long as I can remember, I used to be that little girl with the diary, you know, the ones with the little locks on and the key. And then I
Yes,
always used
yes.
to lose, I used to
I
lose the
had
key
one of
and have
those
to pry it
too.
open. I literally I would have them everywhere, and sometimes I've come and found them and read them back over. But they are not only cathartic, but seeing it and writing it down, it almost alleviates the pressure because, like, I
Yeah.
recognize it. I see you. I
It
see
doesn't
what
have
you're
power over you in the same way.
saying. Exactly. And then you can park it. But then I feel like once, just I'm probably going the longest way around and saying this, when it comes to your boundaries for yourself, have that assurance that they will come. Sometimes you have to have the knocks and learn the consequences of things. You don't have to necessarily set up a plan to defeat them, to beat them, because you will, once you intuitively know and realize that's not working and I'm just
Right.
going to stop doing it, it will come. It will come. There's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure to kind of conquer ourselves. But I feel that the biggest thing that allows us to conquer, if we allow it to, and if we recognize
Good
it's
point.
something we truly want to improve on, I feel that time will allow you to do it. So yeah, but definitely journaling and 15 minutes, and it's so overdone and overused, but meditation, literally
Yeah, it's so important.
turn everything off, turn it all off, because you'll find that the minute you switch it all off, someone calls you, someone texts you, and then
Yeah.
that's telling you that something doesn't want you to take that time for yourself. So take the 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
switch it all off, and then when you come back, you're just like, you feel that sense of achievement that you've been able to switch off when the whole world is telling you to stay connected. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's just kind of been what I've observed. So I know that
I love
I
that.
don't want to keep you too long because I know that you also have a meeting and I want you to be able to be prepared for your next meeting. So we've talked about, going forward. Did you have anything that you wanted to bring to the fore? So you're meeting whoever listens into this for the first time. Maybe we've got people that have listened to my previous podcast, revisiting just to see what we're all about. What kind of bits of wisdom, because we all have wisdom, what do you have to share?
Mm. I would say where I'm feeling really challenged, and whoever's listening, I invite into the opportunity to do this kind of along the lines of what we were talking about. But I think something that's really going to change ourselves and change our communities and the people that we are around is really growing our capacity as people. I think you touched on it earlier. People are so busy, they don't have time. And I think if you can set up little moments of doing the work on yourself, and we all know the work that we need to do that we're desperately avoiding, whether it be, hey, deal with that trauma. Hey, deal with that, that point of, laziness in your life. Go to the gym, whatever it is that you are avoiding, the work in your life, sitting, getting alone with yourself. Where are your thoughts going? Where are you lashing out in defense because you're actually scared? Whatever it is, dealing with those things so that ultimately we can grow our capacity to handle more as people. I think we have such limited capacities because we're busy and we're distracted. But I think if we want to be effective change makers in the world, we have to grow in how much we can handle and tolerate, because there's always going to be somebody in our lives that we don't agree with. There's going to be people that hurt us. There's going to be people that challenge our worldview and our perspectives and what we've described as truth for ourselves. And if we don't have capacity to handle that and respond in love or respond in curiosity, if our capacity is so limited, we will, number one, we'll shut everybody out that doesn't think like us. And I don't think that that's a healthy way to live. I think we're meant to live in community and not in tribes. And community means everybody has a seat at the table. And I think we're meant to live in communities amongst people who don't think like us. And I think we'll be able to love people who maybe don't deserve it, give grace to people who don't deserve it. I think that that's a really key component of what I think is missing from life is we silence ourselves and we struggle giving grace. And I think it's because we just don't have space for anything that doesn't fully align with how we live our lives currently. And I think if we can work on ourselves to be able to hold things better and hold things that are difficult better, hold those weights better, I think we could really see a difference in our own nervous system, in our own lives, and then in how we treat our neighbors and how we treat everybody in our community. So I know that I'm very challenged by that. That's something that I really want to continue to grow and press in on, because I can never continue to be an effective communicator, an effective friend, an effective whoever it is that I'm supposed to be if I just have such a tiny little space for it. So that's an invitation that I'm walking into. I invite anybody who's curious about that to really step in, do the work, excavate those things, and see what you have space for, because I think we have more space than we give ourselves credit for. We just haven't built our lives around that.
Absolutely. And if that's an invitation, I RSVP it. I am with you. I am with you. Honestly, we do have capacity. And again, I think at the moment, there is it doesn't even have to be, because I think a lot of people feel that when you're like, oh, open your door, give.
Right.
The whole conversation about depletion. But one of the things that I do, and it was learning Reiki that kind of taught me about this, is about you don't need to be in someone's face to help them.
No.
There's another spiritual guide called Joel Goldsmith. And Joel talks about, the concept of everyone just trying to be a nice person. But if you believe that good and bad don't exist, that there's only one, and one constant is God, and we are part of the God self. That's it. Okay. So don't judge anything. It's about the one. And when you think of that, you think of yin and yang and know that, okay, light and dark, both of them have to exist. So if you rule your life on that basis, you won't judge anybody, because you'll just know that you have to exist. And I have my bad days and I have my good days. We're always in flux. But Joel talks about the concept of healing from a distance. So as opposed to what I was very much a talker. So if I ever had conflict, I always wanted to talk it through. And my biggest frustration would be is that people didn't want to talk. Like, I was always open to talk. I was always like, if I've done something to upset you, like,
just tell me, just let me know.
Just say something. Whereas, the age of just like, no, I'm not going to mention it. And when you meet that person, it just gets more strained and more difficult.
Yeah.
But what he talks about is, no, don't get in the discussion, sit from afar and just acknowledge that that person has so many other things, and probably a fraction, 0.025 of it has anything to do with you. So pray for their healing from a distance. Pray for, that they have their, whatever they need, they get it, so they can overcome whatever is making them react to me, or, and also you can pray for yourself, of course, but, he talks about, and Joel Goldsmith's foundation in the Infinite Way healed, thousands of people, and it was about a group of people that came together with that same concept, which is we're going to come together and we're going to, say there's got an ailment or someone's got an injury. It's not coming to, don't bring it to the doctor's office. You stay where you are, and I'm going to, from a mental perspective and a metaphysical, I'm going to consider you and I'm going to ask you, and it works. So we don't need to, if we believe in a higher realm, if we believe that, obviously a lot of people are visual, and what I've just said there probably sounds very airy-fairy and off the wall, but, it's knowing that I can wish good for you, and I can want good for you, and I can want healing for you, and not be in the same room as you. So, yeah, I think most definitely. And when you think of it that way, it really does make it easier. Because if you had to think about going to see everybody you wanted to heal or to help, it would be exhausting. But if you know that prayer can, a prayer can extend to, it's almost like, is it Bruce Almighty, where he presses enter on the computer and thousands of prayers start to flood in. And it's like, you can, from where you are in your space, just sit down quietly, and 5 people who you've encountered who, struck you as having problems or issues or dialogue problems with you, heal it from a distance. And I feel that's helped my capacity for people. I'm not coming to you asking you questions. Why did this happen? Why did it happen? I'm going to stay away. I'm going to keep my distance and just know that I'm praying for whatever it is to work its way through. And I'm going to say that 10 out of 10, it works. 10 out of 10
Yeah.
it pops up in my phone and it's just like, hi, how are you doing? Or not to say, I can't really say I come into a great deal of conflict, but just even small things, people I've not heard of, people who have been unwell, and then you get a call and, they're just like, I'm actually doing all right. It's like, I know you're doing all right. I've asked for you to be doing all right. Obviously, I don't say that to them. I'm not taking credit for it, but it's the belief system. So, yeah, but
Yeah.
I really love that. And I would hope, and well, I believe we're going to have further conversations where we welcome more people into these discussions, people who are looking to increase their personal capacity. And
Yeah.
like yourself, I love the idea of that, helping the community open their nets a little bit wider so we can let everybody in. But no, that's
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, what you said too about, not taking ownership of everybody's responses. I think that part of that is just like letting go and being open-handed. And that can be hard for people like me who want to control and fix and get immediate resolution, like living in that state of discomfort. That's hard sometimes. And so, I mean, that's part of increasing my capacity is it's like, how do I hold in tension opposing emotions or things that I'm uncomfortable with and not having to feel like I have to be responsible to fix it. There is that lesson in that as well. So I appreciate you sharing all of that and just where God has led you and how you've reached spaces of just being more open-handed to things that don't always feel comfortable. So that's beautiful.
Well, I think that's probably a good place to bring us to our conclusion, that we're in a space of wanting to invite others in to increase even if they're feeling at a point where they are, I don't know, constrained or restricted, even if we can have a conversation to open that, because this conversation's definitely helped open my ears. I can feel it within me. You've given me so much food for thought, and I'm so grateful again that you've, opened your space and time. And we will most certainly, even if it's one guest at a time, let's turn this into an entire forum. I've just seen that we can have up to 7 co-hosts. So maybe I'll set that as a target, that we will get 7 of us, a divine number, talking about how we're going to support and be a communal effort on this. Are you with that? Does that sound good?
I would be so honored to be a part of that. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, I know that you have a meeting to prep for, so Kirsten, thank you so much. I want you to take amazing care of yourself. Know that you are a gorgeously beautiful human. And again, thank you so much for having a good old-fashioned conversation with me.
I appreciate you.
I'm so happy. And yeah, let's talk. Let's keep talking. And yeah, if there's any topics or anything else, or if anyone who's listening has anything that they would like to contribute, I'm available on all the social handles. And if there's any questions for Kirsten that you want to put her way, we'll probably, when this is published, it will be on YouTube, and we'll put your Instagram links if that's okay with you, so that if people want to connect with you directly, let's do that. Perfect. Well, you have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. I hope the best goes with your meeting, and I will catch up with you soon.
You too. God bless you. See you soon.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.